The Well Beneath the Windmill. The wind never stopped in Wensbridge. It crawled through the grass, slipped beneath doors, and whispered along the windowsills at night. It howled down the chimney of the old farmhouse, like it had words in it, ones that nearly made sense, if you listened too long. Marla hadn't been back since she was 6 years old. 30 years gone, and still, the place knew her. Her grandmother had died in her chair upright, alone, staring straight at the windmill outside. "No will," the lawyer said, glancing nervously over the papers. "But she left the deed with your name already on it. Said you'd come back." Marla hadn't planned to, but now, with no job, no partner, no anchor in the city, the silence of Wensbridge didn't sound so bad. The drive took her through tangled woods and hills the color of dead straw. She arrived at sunset. Crows wheeled above the fields like they were circling something already dead. The farmhouse stood squat and crooked, its boards silvered with age. The windmill behind it loomed tall, 4 massive wooden blades creaking in the unrelenting gusts. It should have fallen apart decades ago, but it hadn't. She stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and cold, pressed down with the smell of candle wax and dried roots. Nothing had moved in years, except for the wind. She unpacked only the essentials. The old bedroom upstairs was still lined with hand-stitched curtains and jars of dried herbs, many labeled in a language she didn't recognize. On the wall hung a strange painting, the windmill at dusk, and something behind it, a black shape in the earth. A circle. A pit? That night, sleep came fast, but it wasn't restful. She dreamed of the windmill. The sky above it was pulsing, beating like a heart. The wind howled, impossibly loud, and at the base of the structure, something crouched beside a dark, open pit in the ground. A woman, soaked, hair plastered to her face, knelt beside it, whispering into the black. Then she turned. Her eyes were white. "The chain is rusted. The seal is cracked. One must go down, or many will rise." Marla woke, gasping. Wind beat against the window like fists. The next morning, she found the well. It was real. Behind the windmill, just beyond the brush, hidden by time. A round ring of stone, iron-lidded, chained shut. The lock was ancient, and the stones around it were scorched black. By noon, the sky turned the color of wet stone. Clouds hung heavy above the fields. The windmill moaned with each gust, its blades groaning like something resisting pain. The rhythm had changed, no longer random. 3 long creaks, then silence. Then again, Marla tried to ignore it. She spent the morning digging through her grandmother's things. The woman had never thrown anything away. Letters tied in bundles, dried plants crumbling to dust. A small leather pouch containing black river stones, each carved with a single letter. She opened a drawer in the hallway bureau and found a floorboard that didn't match the others. It was darker, warped. Something under it. She pried it loose. Beneath was a hollow, and inside that a book wrapped in oilcloth, brittle with age. No title. The first page read, "To speak with wind is to invite the well. To feed the well is to keep the wind asleep." Each following page was filled with names, dozens of them, handwritten in different ink, different hands, different years. Some were crossed out, some had dates next to them, many had none. She flipped to the most recent page. Her grandmother's name was there. So was her mother's. But her mother's name was struck through violently, smeared with ink. And beneath them, a space, blank, waiting. She slammed the book shut. From outside, the wind howled so loud it seemed to vibrate the walls. The pressure dropped like a vacuum had opened above the house. Her ears popped. The air turned sharp and metallic. The lights flickered. She stepped out onto the porch. The windmill had stopped, dead still. Its blades hung motionless against the sky. The ropes that had once supported it now curled upward, defying gravity, swaying in the wrong direction. And there, beside the well, stood a child, barefoot, hair matted, skin pale blue like something drowned. The child turned slowly and looked directly at Marla. It grinned. Not a child's grin. The mouth opened too wide. No teeth, just darkness inside. Marla stumbled back inside and locked the door. Her breath fogged the air. She hadn't realized it had gotten so cold. The book lay on the table where she left it. Its pages were fluttering, though the windows were shut. It stopped on a blank page. Words formed across the surface as if written from beneath. If one is not given, one is taken. That night, she didn't sleep. Voices came with the wind. whispering in the old beams, tapping beneath the floor. At exactly 3 a.m., the candle she left burning in the kitchen flared high. The shadows of 7 figures stretched up the walls. And then, the windmill creaked. Once, twice, 3 times. At dawn, the wind stopped. Not died down, not shifted, stopped completely. The silence pressed against the house like a weight. No creaking, no rustling, no sound of birds. Even the trees beyond the field stood still, leaves frozen mid-motion, as if afraid to breathe. Marla stood at the kitchen sink, staring out the window at the windmill. Its blades hung like limbs drained of blood. A thin fog gathered at the base, curling around the stones. She didn't remember walking outside, but she was there, suddenly barefoot in the grass. The cold soaked up through her legs. Her hands shook as she approached the well. The chains were looser now. She could see it clearly in daylight. The iron lid was old, almost organic in how it rusted, like it had grown into place rather than been forged. The seal had cracked. There were scratches on the stone rim, dozens, deep, desperate, like fingernails clawing upward. One of the links snapped in her hand. Flakes of rust stained her skin red. The lid shifted. Beneath it, blackness. No sound, no smell. Just an opening that somehow felt awake. She dropped a stone in. No echo, just the faintest sound of breathing from below. Then, a voice quiet, right beside her ear, though she stood alone. Now you know. The well is not empty. It was never empty. She turned. The child stood a few feet away again, silent, still. But now, he was joined by others. 7 figures stood across the field. Adults, children, men, women, all pale, all unmoving, watching. She backed toward the house. Inside, the book waited, its pages open. The blank space now filled. Her name, dated. That same day, something within her broke. She tore the page out, but the next page had the same name, and the one after that, dozens of them. All hers. All slightly different. Different ink, different hands, but always her name. Always today's date. She fell to her knees, clutching her skull, trying to force the air into her lungs. And then the wind returned, not a breeze, but a shriek. It smashed into the house, slamming doors, shaking windows. The windmill spun violently, its blades slicing the sky. She screamed. In the hall, the painting her grandmother kept, the one with the windmill, fell from the wall and shattered. Behind the painting, carved directly into the wood. We gave ours. You must give yours. That night, Marla boarded up the windows. She lit every candle she could find. The wind outside was constant again, but louder. At 3 a.m., she felt a presence. Marla woke to dirt beneath her nails. She didn't remember falling asleep, only flickering candlelight, the creak of something too heavy for the stairs, and a whisper that licked the inside of her skull like flame. Now, it was late morning. She lay fully clothed on the floor in front of the hearth, her skin coated in cold sweat and dust. The house no longer felt empty. She stood shakily. Her boots were by the door, caked in mud and moss, as if she'd gone somewhere in the night. The windmill's blades turned in long, deliberate strokes. She stepped outside. The fog hadn't lifted. The sky above was a sheet of ash. She followed the muddy footprints, her own, tracked across the yard. They led to the well, but the lid was gone. The chains lay curled to the side like dead snakes. She stepped closer. There, drawn in the wet dirt with something sharp and red, were symbols, circles, sharp crosses, eyes, and a name, Marla, freshly etched. Just beneath it, a phrase written in trembling, erratic strokes. Beneath the windmill is the root. The root drinks. The wind obeys. She looked up at the old structure towering above her. The windmill seemed taller now, its base broader, windows darker, like it had grown overnight, inhaling years in the space of hours. And the door to the windmill stood open. Inside, pitch black. The scent of turned soil and wet stone. The floor was no longer wood, it was damp earth, soft beneath her feet. A spiral of candles lined the walls, unlit, and jars lined every shelf, each one sealed, each with a tooth or a tongue inside, labeled with names. Her stomach twisted. In the center of the mill, directly above where the gears used to be, was a hatch in the floor open wide. A ladder descended into the dark. She heard it again. The breathing. Slow, shallow, and the faint voice from below. "We remember what was promised. The hollow drank her mother. Now it drinks you." She staggered back and fled to the farmhouse, but the moment she shut the door, it was no longer her house. The furniture had shifted. The walls dripped water. Symbols were burned into the wallpaper, and the radio, old, unplugged, crackled to life. The voice came, older now, angrier. "You cannot flee the root. You are of the well." Blood-bound, breath claimed. She ran upstairs into the bedroom. But it wasn't the same room. There was no bed, just earth, mounded, recently disturbed. A single candle stood in the center. Next to it, a shovel and a mirror. Her reflection was there, but it didn't move with her. It smiled, then opened its mouth and whispered, "You were already buried. Now remember where." The mirror shattered without sound. One blink hole, the next 1,000 cracks, webbed like frost. Her reflection stared through them with calm eyes. Lips still moving, still whispering. Marla dropped the candle. The flame didn't go out. The earth beneath her feet pulsed once, a soft, wet thump, like a heartbeat in mud. She turned to flee, but the door was gone. In its place stood a corridor of soil, tunneled by something large, something clawed. Roots jutted from the ceiling like grasping fingers. The wind outside howled, but it was no longer cold. It was wet and hot, like breath rising from something hungry. She stumbled forward. The air tasted of iron. At the end of the passage, a chamber, circular, stone-lined, familiar. She stood once again at the bottom of the well, except now, she was inside it. The ladder was gone. There were no stars above, only blackness, breathing. In the center of the chamber stood a figure, her grandmother, but not truly. The skin was wrong, stretched, translucent. Beneath it, something pulsed, moved. The thing smiled. "You came back. You always come back." Marla shook her head. "No, I inherited this. I didn't." The voice grew deeper, wider. "You were born here, fed here, named here. You were always ours." Around her, walls began to move, not collapse, but shift inward, like the well was contracting. The thing that wore her grandmother's skin stepped forward. Its mouth opened impossibly wide. From the black inside came voices her own, at every age, laughing, crying, praying, and one final whisper in perfect unison, "One must always remain." She screamed as the roots descended, coiling around her arms, legs, pulling her down. And then darkness, stillness, silence. She opened her eyes. The wind was soft. The farmhouse stood before her, morning light resting gently across the porch. A car door slammed behind her. She turned. A woman late 20s stepped out of a small gray car, suitcase in hand. Confused, cautious, Marla smiled. She stood at the porch steps, barefoot, watching, waiting. The newcomer walked slowly toward the house. She paused at the gate. "Hi. Sorry, is this the Merton farm?" "I'm here about the inheritance." Marla nodded. Her voice, when it came, was dry earth and wind through hollow bone. "Welcome. It's yours now." From behind the windmill, the iron grate clattered shut. Chains pulled tight again. And the wind picked up, whispering her name. Marla